The number one personal finance action that every single person watching this video can do right now to better their financial life is to build an emergency fund. But not only do I think that everybody can do this, I actually think that this is the most important thing anybody can do to improve their finances. That's why in this video, I'm going to break down a great framework for building your emergency fund called the 1-3-6 method. This framework is great because it helps to build as well as maintain and manage your emergency fund over time. If you're new here, my name is Mitchell, and I work in the accounting field, and on this channel, I like to share the best personal finance practices I've picked up along the way, and hopefully they can help you, the viewer, watching this video. I think a great place to begin for this video is talking about what an emergency fund is and why we even care about it. If you watch other personal finance content, you probably already know what an emergency fund is, but for those who don't, it's a stash of money that we set aside only to be used when we face an actual emergency, such as unexpected medical bills, or your car breaks down, or you lose your job. Don't use it for things you just want, like a vacation or a new laptop, or anything that is not absolutely necessary. Now, you might be asking, why would we want to restrict our money like this? And the reason being is that it helps to reduce stress and anxiety around life and money. You don't want to feel like you're one hiccup away from financial disaster, because if you live life like this, and life's inevitable storm hits, you're going to have to resort to using credit cards and debt just to stay afloat. And let's be clear, there will be a point in your life when the storm hits. It's not an if, it's a when. And what I hope for all of you is that you are prepared when it comes. In a sense, your emergency fund will act as your protection plan against life, and it will give you the comfort that you can continue to succeed even after you get knocked down. But not only is it a protection plan and safeguard, your emergency fund also gives you the freedom to pursue financial independence. When you aren't stressing about money, you're able to go after the things you want and focus on the real wealth building activities like increasing your income and investing. Now that we understand that, let's talk about the 1-3-6 method. In this framework, the first phase is saving up 1 month of living expenses in our emergency fund. Now, you might be wanting me to tell you some magic number of how much this is, but really, it depends person to person. If you're single and live alone, your number will be much lower than somebody who has a family and spends $10,000 a month. The way you can figure this number out, though, is by digging into your previous bank and credit card statements to find out how much you are spending in any given month. Once you've found out how much you need, you should be moving rather quickly to try to build up your fund to that amount as soon as possible. This means that any money left over after paying for necessities and the minimum payments on your outstanding debt should be going straight to building this emergency fund. You don't want to draw this process out because you want to cover yourself as soon as possible, because you may need this fund tomorrow and you don't know it. So the sooner you can get it built, the better. You might be listening and thinking, this all sounds great, Mitchell, but I don't have any money left over after paying for necessities and debt. And the unfortunate truth is we can only cut down our expenses so much to make room for saving. Thus, we need to start attacking the other side of the problem and find ways to increase our income. This is quite a bit harder to do, but there are certainly plenty of ways to do this. One way is upskilling in your current field to attract more pay by pursuing certifications outside of work, or another option is you can even look to just job hop to increase your income. Now, once we've figured out ways to save for our emergency fund, we need to have a place to actually put our emergency fund, and for this, I would recommend using a high yield savings account. There are tons of options out there, from SoFi to Ally Bank, but pretty much these savings accounts pay out a much higher return than standard bank accounts from the likes of Chase or Wells Fargo. If you're curious on some good high yield savings accounts, I have a video from a few months ago with great picks that I'll link up here, with the caveat that the APY has likely gone down since when that video was recorded, but they all should still be much higher than a standard savings account. So let's recap phase 1. We want to save up 1 month of expenses in our emergency fund as quick as we possibly can, while only paying for necessities and minimum debt payments, and putting those savings away in a high yield savings account. Now, moving on to phase 2, we need to save 3 months worth of expenses in our emergency fund. Having 3 months worth of expenses begins to give us that freedom and flexibility that we want from our emergency fund. Because we now know that if something happens, we can cover ourselves for at least a couple of months. This is generally the minimum amount you will hear people in the personal finance space recommend for your emergency fund, because any lower, you're still putting yourself at risk if you were put out of work for a prolonged period of time, whether due to injury or the job market. Once you hit 3 months of expenses, I would start to look towards making some investments at the same time as you continue to build your emergency fund further. See, there's another rule in personal finance called the 50-30-20 rule, which is a guideline that you should put 50% of your money towards your needs, 30% towards your wants, and 20% towards your savings. And in that 20% that you are putting towards savings, I would start splitting that between the two pools, the investment pool and the emergency fund. How you want to work out the split is up to you, but what I would do is put something like 15% towards investments and 5% goes to gradually building up your emergency fund further. See, the reason why I think somebody at this stage should start to invest is twofold. One, you've already built up a level of comfort from your emergency fund, so you don't need to put all your money towards it. And two, we want to start taking advantage of compound interest. I've covered the topic of compound interest in other videos, but to quickly explain, compound interest is the interest you earn on both your initial investment as well as the interest that it has already earned. This effect makes it so that your investments snowball bigger and bigger, and it's one of the main ways people become millionaires. However, compound interest needs time to build, so the earlier we can start, the better. If you look at any compound interest calculator, you can quickly put in your monthly investment contributions and the return you expect to get, and you can see how insane your money can grow. For example, a $500 monthly contribution at a decent 7% return rate over the course of 40 years, your $240,000 worth of contributions would grow to more than $1.1 million. Now, as far as where you should be looking to invest this money, I would probably first look to your employer's 401k and then your Roth IRA. These are two common retirement accounts that have tax advantages. The 401k is great because you can contribute pre-tax money, which means right now you won't pay any taxes on it and it grows tax-free. Then, once you reach retirement age, which is currently 59 and a half, you can pull out your money and you pay taxes on it then. Additionally, a lot of employers will have an employer match where they have an arrangement that for every dollar you contribute to your 401k, they will match, which it pretty much just means you're getting free money. In the case of the Roth IRA, you contribute to it with post-tax dollars now, but when you withdraw it after reaching retirement age, you don't pay any taxes whatsoever on it, which is great. Moving on, now that you've built up 3 months of expenses in your emergency fund and have started investing, you're now moving into phase 3 of our 1-3-6 method, which is to gradually build up to 6 months worth of expenses for your emergency fund. See, some people out there might suggest just having 3 months of expenses saved up, but I personally like to play it safer and save 6 months worth of expenses for the reason that our metaphorical financial storm can be way worse than we think. For example, if you lose your job, you might be out of work for a while as you do things like compile your resume, write cover letters, network with people, interview, all these things that finally help you to land a job that don't just happen overnight. This process could take up to a few months, and now you find yourself 3 months in and you have an injury on top of losing your job that requires extensive medical bills. If you've already drained your 3 months of savings, you wouldn't have the means to cover your medical bills, and you'd have to scramble to find cash elsewhere. That's why I personally think 6 months is the ideal amount of cash to have on hand in your emergency fund. But again, these are all just suggestions and you do what you want with your money, but this is just the framework I like to use as my financial backup. Now, if you go any further than 6 months worth of expenses, I think you probably would have too much cash on hand and you're missing out on the big wealth building opportunities like investment and home ownership. And with that, if you found this video useful, you might also like to check out this video over here about why net worth skyrockets after hitting $100,000. Thank you very much for watching.